Welcome back to another episode of Practical Nutrition. I'm Alex.
I'm Cassie.
I'm Sarah.
And today we have a new addition. This is Amanda.
Yay.
She is our new dietitian.
So I'm Amanda, and I was an intern here in 2020, and then I finished my internship in 2021 in the spring, and I got certified as a registered dietitian like 3 weeks ago. And now I'm here training as a dietitian and as a personal trainer.
Yes, well, we are so happy to have Amanda. She's been awesome. So we are just going to dive into it. We're talking about fitness wearables today, and there's fitness watches, but then a watch isn't a watch if you don't have a face on it. So there's lots of different things. There's trackers, there's all kinds of stuff. So we're just going to call them devices, wearables, sometimes watches. We're going to use those interchangeably. But wearable fitness devices have been continuing to grow in popularity. As we all know, you typically don't see somebody these days, it seems like, without wearing some sort of watch or a tracking device or something. And according to ACSM, wearables were the top fitness trend in 2017. So of all the things that were going on, it was the fitness trend of 2017, which is kind of cool. In the US, 19% of Americans say they wear a fitness tracker, with an equal percentage saying they currently use a mobile health app. So whatever kind of app tracking food, exercise, whatever, they have some sort of app that they use. A recent report from Research and Markets predicts global sales of wearable devices will exceed $60 billion by 2025.
Jeez. Wow.
I should have started this. Why couldn't I have been creative and thought of something like this? There are tons of different kinds, as you all know, ranging from smartwatches, which are basically like small computers these days on your wrist, or there's just simple tracking devices, pedometers, that kind of stuff, where it just tracks steps. So there's a wide range, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. What all of these devices have in common is that they facilitate some sort of monitoring in an attempt to elicit activity and tracking from users. So some sort of tracking, some sort of step goal, something like that, that the device wants to pursue, wants the client to try to find. As dietitians and exercise professionals, we can help you as consumers determine which products may help you reach your goals. So if you have questions about it after this, let us know. We can help you determine which one might be best for you. And it can definitely be hard to determine which product would be best for you. But we're going to start with breaking it down and looking for what things to look for in certain products. And Cassie's going to start us off.
Yeah, so first you want to think about a few things before you invest in a wearable, and we'll talk about pricing and some of those things later. But the first thing to think about is, does the product have the capabilities that you need to achieve your goal? And so they have tons of things out there, and they are all different. So some capabilities that watches can offer are step tracking, and that's probably the oldest one. We were having this discussion before that I probably had the original step tracker.
She had the one that was on like her her belt.
Right, I did have one of those.
Track all your steps. And you'd shake it to get all the steps that you need.
And then, but most of them have step tracking now. Heart rate. You can receive emails, texts, and calls, which can be a positive or a negative thing. So all on your wrist. GPS, calorie burn, music, tracking various exercises, sleep awareness, breathing, and stress indication. So these are all things that fitness watches and wearables can offer. And picking a device needs to be based on the capabilities that you feel like you will utilize. So if it's a device that has all these things that you're never going to use, you may save a lot of money by choosing something that has just what you need. So that's the first thing to consider.
Yes, and I have an example here. I bought this Garmin. It's like the Felix something something. It has a ton of names with it, and it has so many different things on here. Swimming, all these different things, and all I used it for was time and running. So did I really need to buy this $500 watch? Probably not. But it's great for somebody who is the triathlete, the runner, who really will utilize all of those things. But I didn't hardly utilize any of it, and probably didn't need to spend that. So I probably should have done my research on the capabilities of this watch. Now I use a Whoop band, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But Sarah, what else do we need to think about?
So there's things that I think people are drawn to with specific watches, and knowing what those are for you as a consumer can help guide you in the direction, because there are so many options. So I think one of the big ones that people don't think about too is, what do you want the display to look like? Do you want there to be a screen, or do you not want there to be a screen? What kind of picture do you want it to be? There's a lot that have the OLED, just like the high quality screen, like the Samsung watches, the newer Apple watches, some Fitbits do. Do you want it to be color? Do you want it to be a touch screen? Do you care? Do you care if it's just black and white? So all of those things are definitely things to take into consideration. And then compatibility, that's important too. You want to make sure it's compatible with, your desktop or your Android or your Apple phone. A lot of people have Apple phones, iPhones, and so it just makes sense for them to do the Apple Watch version, but it's also expensive, so that's another thing to take into consideration too. And then another thing, which I used to have a Garmin, and this was the biggest switch that I had to make when I got my Apple Watch, is how long do you want the battery to last? Because my Garmin lasted almost 2 weeks sometimes, depending on how much I was turning the screen on, and I have to charge my Apple Watch every night, and if I don't, depending on what time I wake up the next day, a couple hours into the day, it's saying you need to charge your battery. So there's pros and cons to that. If you want to track your sleep, then maybe you go for something that has a longer battery life and not something that you have to change overnight, because then you can't, doesn't help you. And then also, what are you willing to pay? This is obviously a huge determinant into which watch you're gonna buy. And prices do vary greatly, and there are so many cheaper options. And like Alex mentioned, she didn't want all the bells and whistles of an expensive watch. If you're like that too, then by all means, get something that's cheaper that fits what you need. And they can range really from anywhere to like $30 to $400, $500. There's some expensive ones nowadays, but they do a lot of cool things. And then what do you want it to do? I think I use my watch more as like a lifestyle watch. I like the messages, I like the emails when I'm at work, probably not as much when I'm just at home. But I like to be able to almost utilize my phone on my watch. I do like the data portion of it too, but if you are more data driven, then there's other watches that can give you more of the data specifics rather than the lifestyle capabilities. And then also, is it comfortable? Can you find styles that you like? There's so many different bands, shapes. I like the square of the Apple Watch versus the circle of the Garmin, so I think that's why I was drawn to the shape of the Apple Watch more. But again, there's just so many options, and I know these are like silly things to take into consideration, but they really do help you kind of narrow it down.
Yeah, and it is an investment, buying it. You're going to use it probably every single day, so you want to make sure that you like what you're purchasing.
Yeah.
Kind of like a pair of shoes, a pair of tennis shoes. You got to be sure they're comfy, you like the color, all that stuff. Okay, now pros of most devices. So these are just some benefits of wearing any sort of tracking device in general. And first is ability to monitor fitness levels and understand your exercise. So if you feel like you don't even know like where your heart rate's at, are you getting a benefit out of your workouts, this might be a good way to kind of determine, okay, am I getting my heart rate up enough? Am I working hard enough? It just helps you learn a little bit more about your exercise. A recent meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials, which is the gold standard, reviewed the effectiveness of wearable trackers on physical activity in healthy adults. Results show that there was a significant increase in daily step count, moderate activity, and total daily energy expenditure in 1,693 participants when wearing a fitness tracking device. So it elicited more of that activity because you were more aware of what was going on. The usage of wearable trackers was associated with modest short-term increases in physical activity. It also concludes providing an effective tool for health professionals like ourselves to assist with ongoing monitoring and support. And that's a benefit of Fitbit, is we use an app called Healthy for our clients to take pictures of their food, and Fitbit is compatible with Healthy. So as health professionals, we can see when you're exercising as well, which is another thing too if you need that accountability. And we can go on and on. There's tons of research about how trackers help increase physical activity in general, whether it be steps, whether it be energy expenditure. So there's lots of different things that are beneficial. However, there's not a ton of research with long-term usage of wearable tracking devices. People switch it up. People don't want to wear them. So it's definitely something that we need to research more. But in general, if you're wearing some sort of tracking device, you typically are going to work out more. So, yeah. And then what else we got, Amanda?
So I'm going to highlight some things about the accountability, because that's one of the biggest pros in my opinion. So an Apple Watch has rings on the face of it, and one way it keeps you accountable is it has a walking ring, a standing ring, and a running ring, and it tells you like how full the ring is or how all the way around the ring is.
Yeah.
If you close the ring, then you've completed that goal. So sometimes at night, if I have a ring that's like just not barely closed, I will walk around my house until that ring is closed just to complete my goal. Another way is it can help you reach your 10,000 steps, which is recommended by the American Heart Association for the daily step count goal. And it also has reminders on it, which you can have turned on or turned off, to stand up, to do exercise, or do mindful breathing. I know that's one of the things that the Apple Watch has is the Breathe app, and that's actually one of my favorite attributes of the Apple Watch. And also, it helps you know your recovery level, or if you've reached a point in your fitness routine where you need to take a recovery day. So that's one helpful thing. I know Alex was saying the other day about her Whoop band that it says she's like never recovered.
I'm constantly overreaching and never fully recovered. My recovery last night was like 20%, so doing pretty well today.
So keep that in mind. So it can help overall with daily motivation, goal setting, and then there's also community groups such as on Facebook or on Apple's website. So you can join groups that are related to your specific watch or wearable.
Yeah, so lots of benefits of wearing some sort of device, but there's also some downfalls and some cons, which I'm going to get into. So it could make activity that was enjoyable seem like a chore to some people. A study published by Duke University, conducted by the Journal of Consumer Research, reviewed the effects of a step tracker on attitudes towards activity. 95 students were asked to record their thoughts for a day while walking. One group was told to check their steps regularly, so keep a good track of how many steps you're getting. The other group was given a pedometer with the display panel taped over, and they're just testing the comfort of the product. So they didn't care how many steps they got. Results showed that that group that tracked their steps walked further but enjoyed their activity less, which is interesting.
That's so important. I think that's a good point.
Yeah,
So want to enjoy what you're doing.
Right. So then, Cassie, what else? What else are we looking at with cons?
Yes, so also you can become obsessed with your calories expended versus calorie intake. So if you have some of those tendencies to look at that too much, where it controls your day, then it may not be the best option for you. So users sometimes exercise to eat instead of fueling for exercise. So that can be an issue as well. And sometimes if you've eaten a certain amount of calories, or maybe if you have a fun food, you may feel like you have to exercise that off, which isn't the healthiest pattern either. You can also feel like a failure for not burning a certain amount of calories, or that it wasn't a hard enough workout if the watch is telling you that it wasn't difficult. I actually had a client today that was asking a couple of questions about her heart rate zones, and she felt like she was working out at a certain level and pretty much as hard as she could during her cardio, yet her watch was telling her average heart rate wasn't where we thought it should be. And so again, this is just data, so you have to look at several things like perceived exertion, how are you feeling that day, what are your goals for that workout, and so it is just a data point, and keeping that in perspective is really important. I know with too, sometimes I don't enjoy exercise because it does feel like a task if I am trying to have that focus every day. So like on Sundays, I just don't wear my watch at all. I don't put it on. I take a break from it. And so, and that's nice. You can mess with the notifications, so if you do have some of those tendencies, that's something too, which we'll talk more about that kind of thing later. But having that off day of the watch is really, I like that.
That's a good idea.
And then also, again, the feeling guilty whenever you have a highly driven personality and a kind of over-functioning personality, which all of us probably at this table are that way. So sometimes it can be too much. And so a recent survey conducted by CNN asked Fitbit users about their experience with their watch. Of 200 women, many felt under pressure to reach their daily targets. 79% of them did, and that their daily routines were controlled by Fitbit. 59% of them felt like their daily routines were controlled by Fitbit.
Yeah.
So add this to that, almost 30% felt the device was an enemy and made them feel guilty.
Oh no!
Bad watch.
Right. So I am guilty of talking to my watch sometimes. So
whenever I wore Apple Watch, I would get mad at it. It'd be like, you need to stand up. I was like, you need to shut up.
I know.
I'm gonna mute you.
Like, who here has called their watch a bad name?
Oh yeah, it's your hands.
That's hilarious.
I have cussed at my watch before. So yes, you have to be sure you're watching that. Also, another con is definitely the price. Some can cost nearly $400, and I know, with Apple products, for example, they tend tend to lose the ability to hold the battery life as they get older. So while and phones are kind of the same way. And so you constantly have to kind of upgrade, to get all the features and for them to work with your phone. And so there's that initial cost, but also the upkeep costs that are incorporated with that. And then sometimes subscriptions or different things that you have to look at. And so the battery life, that's definitely a con. I went on a little vacation this last weekend and I forgot my charger on my watch.
Oh, no.
So I was bummed for a little while. I was like, oh well, I'll just throw it in my bag. But I had no watch at all.
Yeah. Kind of nice sometimes.
So it's nice, but that can be a con as well. So the bottom line for fitness trackers, they are great for motivation because sometimes people need more than, okay, I just should exercise today because that's what's recommended. So it gamifies things, which can really be helpful for motivation in those small little steps that you get towards, say, your 150 minutes or your steps for the day or standing up every hour. It can really help you stay on track and remind you and keep it in the front of your mind for motivation. So with the tracking, goal setting, understanding your workouts, I find that it's really helpful for people to have some data whenever they're working out, and then looking at that in more depth, you can understand maybe I do need to increase my intensity, or maybe like for Alex, I need to take another recovery day, or I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. So she is Superwoman, but and then really research what you're buying, its capabilities and its purpose. Don't let it control your life or dictate whether an exercise was effective or not. So again, remember it's one data point, so to look at and to help you. And if you feel like it's not helping you, then think what can you do to take that negativity off of your device.
Yeah, and I think you're right that the goal of these devices to help you. And if, like she said, if you feel like it's a negative thing, then maybe reevaluate the type you're using or what data you're grabbing from it. Are you thinking too in depth about it? So it's definitely just important to make sure you're picking something that's going to help you reach your goals. And like we said, there's pros and cons to all devices, but now we're going to dive into some of the top products. And I know you're probably surprised, but we're going to start with Apple Watch. More than 100 million people globally own an Apple Watch.
Good Lord.
Dang it.
That's a lot. They are pretty awesome.
Why did I not buy stock in Apple like a zillion years ago? So the pros of an Apple Watch, heart rate. More sophisticated technology compared to its competitors, so they spend the money on tracking that heart rate. Early Apple Watch models, Series 1, 2, and 3, rely on LED lights that detect the flow of blood through your arteries. The Apple Watch Series 4 also incorporates built-in electrodes which can measure the heart's electrical signals, so your echocardiogram, when using the heart rate app or the ECG app within Apple Watches, which is pretty cool. This product received FDA clearance for its ECG monitoring functionality, making it one of the first direct-to-consumer ECG devices on the market. So that's kind of cool that they received that. So for reference, Fitbit doesn't feature the ECG functionality that newer Apple Watches do, instead opting for the LED light method, which is the old way for Apple. Overall, fairly accurate in determining heart rate. I say that, but whenever I do classes sometimes here at AYB, I'll be on the bike and I'm like, oh my God, my heart rate has got to be like 190. And my watch will be like it'll say 60 beats per minute. I'm like, I know for a fact that my heart rate's much higher. And I think it just takes a second for it to catch up. Because, I mean, your wrist is a long way from your heart. So having like one of those polar straps, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is a good way to really track heart rate immediately. But sometimes I feel like heart rate takes a second to catch up with my watch. And I do have an older Apple Watch. I don't wear anymore, but I do have like one of the first ones I feel like ever made. So that is a pro, that it does track heart rate. It's accuracy, but at least you are tracking your heart rate in some capacity. And then GPS, so great for people like runners, hikers, tracking elevation gains, distance covered. Again, but mine's like a first gen, and I'll go run and I'll be like half a mile behind everybody on my distance, even though we're running together. So it's important to be sure you're updating it and making sure that you're keeping up with that. And then going off of also, you talked about, what were we talking about? Well, it's just a funny story with Apple more so. So I had run a marathon, Bass Pro Marathon. And about 2 hours after I was done, I got a notification from my Apple Watch. It's like, it's time to stand. And I'm like, I just ran a marathon. I'm not I'm laying on this couch for the rest of the day. So that's when I was like, we're going to have a talk, Apple.
So they're smart smart, but they don't know what you did earlier that day sometimes or the day before. And that's one reason I don't like to wear it on Sundays, because it kept telling me, you're usually further along by now, and or things like that. And that was a negative. It would actually, I would say, oh, I need to do something, but then no, I don't need to do something. So you can change notifications, or you can take
maybe I should have done that.
Yeah, you can change what type of notifications it gives you. Okay. So I don't ask for its advice ever.
That's smart.
Yeah,
I like that.
I just shut it up. That's
shut it up. Yeah. I like that. That's good. All right, so we're talking about the pros of Apple Watches. What else do we got?
Let's talk about calories that you burn in a workout. So is it accurate? What is Apple Watch really based on? It's fairly accurate, but it does depend on the type of workout that you're doing, and are you updating it? Are your anthropometrics right? Is your height, your weight, your age, is all of that updated? Whenever you look at your calories expended for the day, the Apple Watch takes into account your basal metabolic rate, which is based off of your anthropometrics that I just mentioned. So yeah, that should be fairly accurate. There's equations used to estimate that. And then also your active calories. And then from your active calories in conjunction with your basal metabolic rate that the Apple Watch determines based off the data you give it, that's your total calories expended for the day. And if you are more so a resistance trainer, or like if you do our performance classes, which is more like high intensity interval training, it may not be as accurate, but it is still gonna reflect, okay, hey, you did this workout, this was your heart rate, based off of, your BMR information, this is about probably where you were at in terms of your total calories expended. And it can be a good motivator as well. And then additionally, it does step tracking, which all fitness wearables do, and it does give you reminders to meet your goals, which you can customize for yourself. And then you can also get all of your notifications sent to your phone. That's one of the things that I really use my Apple Watch for the most, outside of tracking workouts too. Being someone who stands up most days, I don't always have my phone with me right next to me, and so my watch just kind of takes that on, which is helpful. And then additionally, you can use almost all of your apps, if you have an iPhone that you use on your iPhone, on your watch too. You can use Apple Pay, you can pull up your wallet, I use the calculator app to calculate like percentages of my 1 rep max while I'm working out sometimes if I don't want to use my phone. And then it does give you a date and a time display, which not all devices do. And that's another thing that I personally like about it. And then you can use like your GPS, your maps while you're driving. Just flip your wrist up instead of looking at your phone, which you could argue that'd be safer, right? Yeah. And then it'll also give you notifications, for events that you have in calendars and stuff. So essentially, almost everything you can do on your phone, you can do on your watch. For Apple Watch.
Yeah.
For Apple Watch. For sure.
Right. Okay, so we talked about the pros of Apple Watch. Now Amanda's going to guide us through some of the cons, because we got to.
So, to repeat, they are expensive. They can range anywhere from $399 to $800. If you're like me, you can find one used, like on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or something.
Refurbished.
Yeah, refurbished. And if you're not sure if like the Apple Watch is the right one for you, like get an older generation, like a Series 1, 2, or 3. They use the LED just to see if you like wearing it, if it's comfy, if you like how it looks on your arm. They also do have low battery life, which we have talked a little bit about. 18 hours battery life for an all-day use. Like the rest of you, I had to charge mine every single night, and sometimes it would die midway through the day, which is kind of annoying. They are compatible only to the iPhone, so if you have an Android or another style of phone, Apple Watch is not for you. It can only be the iPhone 5 or newer, so keep that in mind. If you're purchasing one, you might have to buy a new phone too, which would just add to the cost.
2 for 1.
And another thing is, it must be in range of your phone at all times if you don't pay for the data plan. So data plan is another way it's going to up you in price, because when I first got my Apple Watch, I didn't realize you had to have a data plan, and I would try to go take a run or a walk and it wouldn't work, and I didn't understand why. But you have to have your phone on you too. It can be highly distractive with all those notifications. So like Cassie says, she just turns hers off or modifies them to the ones she only needs. It is very delicate. So if you have one, I highly recommend getting screen protectors for it. You can buy hard plastic screen protectors. It's like a box around it. Or you can just buy like the screen protectors, like the little thin glass things that go over the top, and those are really helpful.
So that's Apple Watch. Many pros, a few cons, just some things to note. Definitely for somebody like the working person who wants to still get their emails, calls, texts, and just wants general activity. If you're a runner, it's a really just good overall watch. It's expensive, but if you have an iPhone and you can pay for it and you want all the bells and whistles, you're definitely going to get that with the Apple Watch. So next we're going to move into Fitbit.
Yes, so Fitbit, 105 million have been sold since 2010, and there are 30 million active users. Some pros are many different options for various populations. They have 3 smartwatches and 5 types of trackers. Prices vary from $70 to $200, so a little lower price point than Apple. They're very user friendly. They do have heart rate tracking, and they automatically log workouts depending on type. So they're compatible with a lot of different types of other apps and features, like we mentioned, Healthy. They have GPS, and they also can connect to my Fitness Pal, Runkeeper, Map My Run, so all sorts of different things. So if you like to use all sorts of different types of apps to help you with data, that might be a good one because it incorporates so you don't have to go add it in yourself. It tracks your sleep, and I had with my Fitbits that I've worn in the past, I had to stop wearing them because they bothered me because you do wear it all the time, so all night long. So that was something that for me was cool to see my sleep patterns, but it wasn't something I wanted to do for months and months or years and years. It can track your basic workouts, and it's also water resistant, which isn't the same as waterproof. So that's a different, just have to make sure that you understand that. I get too nervous about having my Apple Watch in water just because it is so expensive. So I always take mine off.
Yeah.
But one time I was taking it off to protect it, and I dropped it and it cracked. So that was fun.
Delicate.
Yeah, delicate. So that's my story about not having the screen protector. So maybe it's safer just to wear it in the water. Some cons with Fitbits, some have screens, some do not. So that might be a con for you if you want a screen or don't want a screen. They do have very limited smart functionality. So for me, because I love the smart features of the Apple Watch, for example, with my kids, I love having them able to call or text me when I'm out on a run. It also has saved me whenever I've been out and forgot my wallet. So a Fitbit can't do that. So yes, because I got up and I realized I didn't have my wallet, so I was able to pay with my Apple Watch. So that might be a con for some people because it doesn't have all of those bells and whistles, and those are things that I certainly use. No onboard music storage, and so that can definitely be a con. I like to listen to music sometimes when I do races and things. And also like podcasts and that's another thing I like to listen to sometimes when I'm going out on a walk. And you could do that with an Apple Watch, but not with something like a Fitbit. Clasps can disconnect easily. That can be a con, so it might fall off or you might lose it. And then reviews show that the band can be uncomfortable. I experienced that personally, but that was, and I don't know, I haven't worn one in a few years. And then the battery life is only 10 to 12 hours, so it's not something that's going to last for a super long time either.
All right, and that is Fitbit. And we are moving on to the Whoop Band. Pros looks at activity differently than competitors. So it's not necessarily based on calories by any means. It's more of your strain. So you have a 21-point strain in a day, and then it'll tell you how close you got to that 21. That's the highest strain you can have. And that's based off of how hard you worked, your heart rate, your respiratory rate, all of that kind of stuff. So it'll tell you what your strain was for the day rather than focusing on calories and steps and that sort of thing. It's also very focused on recovery. So you have a really high strain, you need that recovery, which I think is pretty cool, making sure that you are getting that recovery time to let your body reset, which is always good. And then, like I said, it tracks respiratory rate, so breaths per minute. It tracks your sleep cycle, but again, this is a pro, but it could be a con because you do have to wear it. It's expected to be worn all the time.
It seems comfy though. Is it comfy?
It is comfy. Yeah, it is comfy. So, and I'm not somebody who, I sleep with my rings and stuff on, and some people are like, get it all off. I don't want it all. And I have my rings on, my watch on, so it doesn't bother me at all. And it tells me how much sleep I got, my REM sleep, my light sleep when I was awake during the night. Did I get enough sleep to recover for my workout the next day? And then it accumulates. So I was saying I only had 20% recovery. But it's because I was overreaching for a couple days in a row and didn't get the proper amount of REM sleep. And then I was overreaching the rest of the days and my recovery was less. So it's kind of cueing me to take a full day to recover, really let my body reset, and then go into a workout the next day. So that's pretty cool. Excellent battery life, about 5 days or so. 24/7 activity monitoring, but again, that requires you to be wearing the watch all the time. Views cardio as a string, which I already talked about just a little bit. The app is excellent. So that's kind of their selling point. Yes, you have this strap, but their app is phenomenal. It has all kinds of different data. If you're a very data-driven person, and it's not so much like for a lifestyle thing like Sarah was talking about, if you want the data, it's really great for that. Seeing your month as a graph, seeing your metrics and all that stuff, and how your data is throughout the weeks, really cool for that. Simple, low profile design. I picked blue, but they have different colors and stuff. And the strap is comfortable, like Cassie said, and it's stretchy, which is kind of nice. But if you wear it too tight, it can leave like indents. So just keep that in mind. Some cons of it is a subscription model. So it's not something you purchase and then that's what you pay for. You pay for it monthly. So you get it free and then you pay for it. It's a sliding scale, so you start $30 a month, and then it can drop to $18 depending on how long you have it and what kind of model you have. So that's one con of it, in my opinion, especially if you don't use it. Don't forget to stop your subscription. No reminders or updates. It doesn't ding, it doesn't beep, it doesn't do anything like that. I don't know when somebody's calling me or anything like that. No screen. In my opinion, it's kind of ugly. Like, it's just not very cute. I don't know. And you're supposed to wear it all the time, and I had a wedding a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I can't really accessorize this. Yeah. So it's kind of ugly in my opinion, but I do like the data that comes from it. And it's encouraged to be left on all the time. So just some things about Whoop. I do like it a lot, but if you're not a person who loves the data or needs to see the time, and I mean, it doesn't have a screen on it, so you can't see the time or anything like that. So just keep in mind if you're going to purchase it, that's kind of what you're getting. And then lastly, we're going to move into the Garmin.
Yes, so let's talk about pros for the Garmin. So this was another big transition I had to make when I had my Garmin to my Apple Watches. Your screen always stays on. So like I could have my arm down in my lap and just flip my screen up towards me and I could see the time. But with Apple Watch, you have to like encourage it to turn on with like a wrist flip towards you.
Yeah.
So and that can be something that people don't want. And it is, additionally, the Garmin is pretty easy to navigate. Their battery life is super long, ranging from 1 to 2 weeks. And it does connect to GPS signal quickly. That is what Garmin is known for, is their GPS capabilities, so that's good. Their sports band is pretty comfortable. If y'all have ever worn Garmin before, it is a pretty comfortable watch to have, especially while doing activity. And then it does allow for consistent heart rate monitoring, but again, we do question, the accuracy for different types of workouts like strength training, like high intensity interval training, just like we talked about for the Apple Watch. It is great for runners. There's a lot of things that you can monitor. You can monitor GPS, your pace, elevation, your distance, many things. So it gives you a lot of data. And then it does provide a lot of advanced sleep monitoring, which this is one thing that I did utilize when I had my Garmin because I did sleep with it. But it does tell you like the sleep stages that you are in, your pulse ox, your respiration, and it tells you when you actually fell asleep and when you wake up, and then what level of sleep that you're in. And again, if you like data, that's interesting things to look at. To if you thought you got 10 hours of sleep, but you really only got 7, and you really only got 4 or 5 hours of deep sleep, then you can know that about yourself based off your watch. If you do use Strava, I have a lot of friends that like to bike and run long distances, and so they'll upload whatever fitness tracker wear into that app, and then you can track that over time and see your distance, your pace, like how fast was your mile, how fast did you do a 50-mile bike ride, things like that. Strava does that for you, and your Garmin allows your activity that you track in there just to sync automatically with that app, which is kind of cool. And you can also pair your Garmin with the Polar Strap, which is a chest heart rate tracker, which is going to be more accurate than just monitoring your heart rate on your wrist. The Polar Strap detects the electrical signal of the heart to reflect heart rate rather than just the LED lights like the earlier Apple Watch and Garmin has. And it's not affected by arm motions and weather like a lot of wrist strap heart rate monitors can be, so it's more accurate.
I love it. Okay, what about some of the cons?
Cons of the Garmin, a lot of people have complained about it looking cheaper because it's more plasticky looking as opposed to like the rose gold or the shiny metals of the Apple Watch. It doesn't have as many activities that you're able to track, so there's just less capability with it. It can be expensive depending on the type and the kind, like Alex said. Like $500.
Yeah.
So that's expensive. That's a real investment.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a touch screen. So the buttons you can only use from the side, so it's not as futuristic.
Yes, that's right. So these are the brands that we want to go over. These are popular ones. Many pros and cons to each. But what do we do? What do we pick? There's so many different options. So use these devices to help you reach your goals rather than letting it run your life. So just think about the capabilities and what you're really going to use it for, and then pick based off of that. If you want something simple, less expensive, Fitbit has little trackers that are cheaper. If you want to just track your steps and know what time it is, that might be the route for you. If you want something higher tech that tracks all your workouts, you want to get your emails, all that stuff, Apple Watch might be the route for you. You want to focus more on your recovery and your strain. If you want the data, if you don't really care to look at the time, if you want to wear it all the time, then maybe the Whoop's for you. If you're a runner, if you're a triathlete, or again, somebody who wants to receive those emails, but you don't need it to be super techy and have all the apps and stuff, maybe Garmin is the route for you. If you're curious about how much you are actually burning during exercise, because I feel like a lot of times that calorie burn is what people are looking for, we do offer soon VO2 max testing, and that'll tell you exactly how many calories you burn when you're exercising, depending on what heart rate zone that you're in. So if you're curious about really where your fitness is at and where to start, that's a really good test to do that, and we do offer that here at AYB. We're going to get it up and running soon. We took a break from it, but we're coming back to it, so that'll be exciting if you are interested. And then focus not only on exercise, but food as well. We are dietitians, but we're also exercise professionals, so we get to talk about both sides of it, so it's important to incorporate both. But we want to just give you guys some guidance as to different brands and stuff that we recommend, because we get tons of questions about it. And if you have more questions, let us know. But that concludes our episode of Practical Nutrition.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.